everyone. Liz Holterhouse from OBX for Sale, powered by Keller Williams, back to continue our buyer agent series. And last week we talked a lot about how to create a budget, the purpose of getting pre-qualified with a local lender, that type of thing. And this week we're going to talk about what happens when we get into looking at property. We're going to talk about negotiations, looking at market trends and stats, and we're going to talk about the objective advice that that I would give a buyer who is out looking at property. So let's dive right into this. So one of the things you want to have in a buyer agent is a strong negotiator. So we want to know what our market trends are, what our stats are. Is the house priced right? If it's not priced right, why is it not priced right? Is it value versus condition? Is it just a price that was pulled out of the sky? You know, what is going on? Is it high because the market's come down? Is it high because there's a lot of months worth of inventory on the market? There's so many reasons that a house can sit on the market longer than usual. So in order to determine that, you need to know what the average days on market is for a house in the area that you're looking. And then you need to be able to figure out why certain ones are sitting on the market longer than others. So we want to be able to understand pricing strategies and whether or not something is high. And then also you want an agent who can negotiate against the list price. The other thing we'll talk about a lot when we're out in the field is keeping emotion out of real estate. There is no room for emotion. It can become very emotional. Sometimes you'll have a seller who has owned a home for a very long time. Think about the seller that's maybe in their 80s and they're selling their little beach cottage. They've raised their children there, they've raised their grandchildren there, and maybe they even have memories there with great-grandchildren. There is a lot of emotion wrapped up in that sale. They're not selling just a house. They're selling memories. They're selling part of their lifetime journey, and that can become emotional. And that is a hard emotion to remove from real estate. But if everyone else is emotional when they're being emotional, it's the transaction is just going to be so difficult, and it's probably never going to get to the end and across the finish line. So you need to know when to push, you need to know when to compromise, and you need to just step back and say, if this house isn't for me, then that's fine. Let's move on to the next one. In real estate, you need a win-win situation or there is no deal. So if you make an offer to a seller and they come back at full price, or they come back and totally just don't even want to answer to your offer, or they turn your offer down, you can't let emotion get the better side of you. You have to look at real estate as just a business transaction. Why is that seller that way? What is happening on his end, and what can we do to get him to see differently as to how we feel and where we want to be? And one of the things I always do is, if I don't agree with a pricing strategy but we still want to purchase the home, and I want to work hard for that buyer to win the home at what we think the fair market value is, I am going to spend a lot of time drafting an email to the listing agent, and I'm going to draft it in such a way that that listing agent can then feel like she can just forward it to her seller. You know, we're going to thank them for their time. We're going to thank them for letting us look at their house. But then we're going to explain our side of it and what we're seeing based on the condition of the home, based on the location, or based on the rental income, whatever the issues are. We're going to sit down and we're going to explain it in a methodical way. This is how we came to this conclusion. We're not just being jerks. We're not just bringing you a lowball offer, Mr. Seller. We really feel like your home is overpriced, and this is why. We're willing to buy it at this price if you're willing to sell it at this price. And it's very important to start that dialogue like that. And if I, the buyer agent, takes the time to sit down and explain all of that, we are just so much more successful on the other end. It just really allows the buyer agent to forward that email. It continues the conversation. Flipping my hat, taking off a, a buyer agent hat and putting on a listing agent hat. I love it when I've got a buyer agent that comes at me with that much professionalism and shows me her knowledge and explains to me where her buyer is. And it allows me, it gives me permission as the listing agent to just forward it on to my seller, because oftentimes it's things I've told my seller, and the things that we say in the email to the buyer agent may be things that the buyer agent has told her seller. But sometimes it takes hearing it multiple times from multiple people in different ways. And we just want to be extremely professional and respectful when we do that. And oftentimes it works in a great compromise. So that's what I'm saying. You need to know when to push and when to compromise. And sometimes pushing will lead to having to walk away, and that's okay. That's not your house. We'll find a better one. And really, there are times where I believe if it's meant to be, it's going to be. And I have many clients that come to me with that belief too. And so many stories of this one just wasn't meant to be. But then my buyer is rewarded with something even better comes on the market, something that ticked every box, something where they weren't having to settle. So sometimes just being patient, knowing when to push, knowing when to compromise, and more importantly, knowing when to walk away. Just throw in the hand and walk away and wait and see what comes on the market next is a better strategy. Problem solving is one of my superpowers. It always has been. And once we're under contract and problems arise, or even getting under contract as problems arise, I've got so much knowledge and experience, and I'm always seeking that win-win, that coming to a conclusion or suggesting ways to get the parties there is just something I've always, always, always been good at. And so I bring that to the table. And logic and facts and not emotion should be what drives your decisions, especially on the buying side of thing, even on the selling side too. But sometimes when you've owned a long time, like I said, emotion on the selling side is harder to control. But on the buying side of things, logic and facts needs to drive your decision making and not emotions. And that is very important. And so we need to look at logic. What's the logical business decision here? We need to look at the facts, all of the facts, and that big picture will then help you decide how to handle your negotiations. I'm here to guide you, but at the end of the day, you're my boss, and I'll do what you say to do. But at the end of the day, I'm also going to give you objective advice, and sometimes that's advice you don't want to hear. It's going to be an honest opinion on the properties. And that honest opinion could disagree with what your opinion of the property is. You might think the property is just awful because you have a 48-page home inspection. Well, every home inspection is 48 pages. If your home inspection is just a GFI and just little things that are more maintenance issues, you've got a great home inspection. Now, if you need a new roof and your HVAC is failing and the water heater is leaking and all of the systems and stuff, there's major problems everywhere, then yes, you got a bad home inspection and we need to work through that. But there's going to be an honest opinion. I'm going to give an honest opinion or perspective on everything that I see. I'm going to help you to evaluate the pros and cons, and at the end of the day, it's still your decision to make. It's easy for me to keep an emotional detachment for better decision making, because it's not my purchase. It's not my home that I'm looking to purchase, and I will try to help you kind of keep your emotions in check. And then, of course, I'm going to identify any red flags or potential issues that are going to plague you and try to walk you through those. my goal when we get out into the field, whether it's a virtual FaceTime showing or you're with me and we're going in the homes one at a time, is to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, and point out the things that I see are wrong with the home. I have a lot of experience in the construction field. I have a lot of experience reading home inspections. I have built, I have remodeled, I have flipped, I own multiple rental properties myself. So I am going to show you all the things I see that may show up on a home inspection, because my goal is for you to get a home inspection that you're not surprised by. Again, kind of setting that expectation that, okay, this house, these is everything's original, so you're going to have to budget money to replace HVAC's roof and decks in the next 5 to 10 years, or whatever the situation may be. So those are going to be the things that I tell you. They're not meant to scare you. They're just meant to give you a very realistic view of the home and what to expect in 5 to 10 years down the line. There are some things that you may see that look horrible. We have a lot of rust in the area, a lot of fasteners rust. Some fasteners rust, and the rust looks bad, but the damage is actually not really an issue. And then there are other fasteners that rust a little bit, but there's nothing else supporting it, and that fastener is something that needs to be changed quickly. Those kind of things, just kind of taking you through what I know in when it comes to coastal construction in this coastal environment full of salt air and moisture and things like that. Sometimes replacing decks, people think you have to replace everything, the girders, the pilings, and the decking boards and the handrails. And normally the first time a deck is replaced, it is normally just the planking boards that you walk on that need to be replaced. The ones on a western exposure are going to be the ones that have to be replaced first. Covered decks and covered porches are going to be the ones to be replaced last. And very rarely does a complete deck overall have to occur where you're replacing girders, bands, and pilings, especially if the house is only 10, 15 years old. And I'll point out those things and I'll show you why. So it's kind of important, I think. Again, we're going to go back to experience matters. Who you're in business with matters. And the buyer agent that you choose, you are in business with them. You are asking them to represent you in one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make in your life. And you want to ask yourself, are they skilled negotiators? Do they study the market? Do they know the market trends? Do they know the stats? Do they know whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market? Do they know what direction the market is going in? Is it going more towards a stronger seller's market or more towards a buyer's market? These are things I report on and study daily and do a monthly market update monthly on. And then you want somebody that's going to give you objective advice. It's great to hear the things that you want to hear, but at the end of the day, that is not my job. I will tell you what you need to hear, and then it's your job to process that and then make a decision from there. So until next time, this is Liz Holterhouse, OBX for Sale, powered by Keller Williams, and I will see you next week for a new Buyer Agent series.